All right, good evening. It's 6 p.m., April 13th, 2022. I'd like to open the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for this evening. At the last meeting, we announced that the virtual/remote ZBA meetings would end with that last meeting, and in fact, they did. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being televised live on local channel 18. Now, if we could all rise, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, sitting on our first two hearings tonight will be our 5 regular board members. And before I have Sharon read the first 2 continued hearings, I want to mention that the audience out there in TV land has been upset because I guess the microphones don't work too well right up there at the desk. So when you're at the desk and you're making a presentation, make sure the microphone is, if you would, very close, and speak up so everybody can hear. Thank you. Sharon, would you read the first 2 continued hearings?
42 Spoondrift Way. Owners BEC MA Properties LLC request a special permit under 174-17.1 of the zoning bylaws to raise an existing single-story residential structure and replace the same with a new 2-story residential structure on property located in an R3 zoning district, map 111, parcel 127, Mashpee, Mass., continued from March 23rd, 2022, hearing at the request of the attorney. 42 Spoondrift Way. Owners BEC MA Properties LLC request a variance under 174-31 of the zoning bylaws to vary the front and side setback requirements and lot coverage requirements to allow for a raise and replace of an existing single-story residential structure with a new 2-story residential structure on property located in an R3 zoning district, map 111, parcel 127, Mashpee, Mass., continued from March 23rd, 2022, hearing at the request of the attorney.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Attorney Christopher, and Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Attorney Christopher Carrain, representing the applicant. So as the board knows, we were here on March 23rd. During our presentation and the questions and answers with the board had raised some concerns, which I think were twofold. One was the variance request specifically to the front yard with the front yard setback, and second had to do with lot coverage. At that time, the proposal was increasing the existing lot coverage over what's exists now and into the 30% range. So the design, we continued the hearing. The design team took a second look at the project. We have redesigned the home. I think those plans should be in front of you. And one issue, the variance request for the front yard is no longer necessary. We have now made the house compliant with the 40-foot front yard setback. Therefore, and I know there was some earlier confusion with regard to whether we needed a variance for lot coverage and side yard setbacks, but we determined that that was not necessary. So with the change in the plan to bring the house back a little bit to meet the setback requirement, we now need no variances, and would request at the appropriate time to withdraw any variance request for this project. The second part of the project that the development team changed was the size of the structure. We have now reduced the size of the structure so it is under 25%. I will say that, for clarity to the board, that is based on what the proposed upland coverage of the 9,000 square feet. So we are doing it based on proposed, but we are under 25%. We do meet your bylaw. So I think those were the major changes that the board requested. I did see the comments from the engineering department. The comment that they made regarding the request for variance, or if we were varying because of raising, I don't think they're applicable. That specifically has to do with the floodplain bylaw. We're not requesting any changes relative to floodplain. We comply. So I don't think that comment is relevant to our discussion tonight. So with that, I will open it back up to questions. Yes.
Let me start. You've got a cantilever on the house,
Correct.
and I believe it's 2 feet by however long,
Correct.
23 feet, roughly.
2 feet by 23 feet. So, is that area included in with the lot coverage?
Yes, it is. Yes.
What, I'm just curious, why are you, because the 40, you got the 40 feet, why are you cantilevering it then? I'm just curious, as a builder, why are you cantilevering it?
I think that was just in order to, whatever the design features were, that was the decision that they made.
So the lot coverage is figured on the first floor, not on the foundation?
Why don't you come up?
I can't see her.
Yeah, grab the mic and your name, if you would.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Morrison. I'm the architect. Oh, thanks. Do you
And
need
what's
my
the design firm?
local studio?
Thank you.
The reason that we are cantilevering the front face of that left volume is so that we comply with the front yard setback requirement. We decreased the length of that volume, and we're cantilevering the front so that we comply with the 40 feet.
It doesn't have to go to the cantilever setback?
It goes to the foundation, you do have 2 feet cantilever.
Correct.
So you don't, I understand like a side deck or stoop or
Yeah,
something, but a house that cantilevers 2 feet, not a cantilever much more, but say 2 feet in the front, you go to the foundation and cantilever has nothing to do with setback.
You have a 2-foot cantilever.
Correct. That's,
So you don't
You're
count.
allowed a
Allow
2-foot
that
cantilever?
for setbacks, it's allowed for a setback, but not for lot coverage.
so it's one of the notes in your land use regulations.
So you could cantilever a house 2 feet on all
I
four
gotta
sides
learn
if you
that
want
Yeah,
to?
correct.
Very nice.
Yes, it's in footnote 19.
19.
I didn't know that.
And you know what's strange, because I was looking at it very closely tonight, and I made a bunch of notes. Footnote, what again, 19?
Footnote 19.
See, I had nothing to do today, right?
I'm looking at this 40-foot setback, it looks like it goes to the cantilever.
It goes to the cantilever, but if you look, the foundation would be closer, so I assume.
There's a horizontal line
Oh,
there
yeah,
that you see.
it's more than
It
normal,
gets the
it's
corner.
small. Yeah, I see it now,
Yeah.
I got
More
you.
than 3 feet, oh yeah, look at that. No more than 3.5 on the decks and platforms. I was looking at 16, another.
Yeah, okay,
I stand corrected.
we learned something.
But can I ask a question? Does that count as lot coverage?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
And you included that in your
Yes.
calculation?
Yes, we
That's why I
did.
said going by the first floor, not the foundation.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
So are we on both special permit and variance, or one at a time, or how are we handling it?
I
We'll
believe
do
they've
them one at a
already,
time, but they're withdrawing
they're
the
withdrawing the
variance.
variance.
Okay, so do you want,
They were called together, so,
you want to have a motion on the variance?
We'll do it
Okay.
when we're ready to do
May I ask a
both.
question under the special permit?
Go for it.
So,
Grab the mic, go a little closer if you would.
correct me if I'm wrong, you're still using, and I think it's in one of our letters from from the town engineer, you're still using filled coastal bank, et cetera, for the lot coverage calculation.
that is correct. That's the proposed condition. There's nothing in your bylaw that would prohibit us from using it that way. So this is something that was approved by the Conservation Commission. It's an enhancement to the resource area. They recommended, because we're connecting the coastal bank, so you're making an increase. And I would suggest that we're probably bringing it back to its original condition, because the house as it sits now was dug into the coastal bank. So I think that the board, I think in this particular case, I think, there not being any prohibition of it, handling it that way in the bylaw, that certainly the board could, rule on this, that we are calculating it appropriately.
So as you know, though, a zoning bylaw doesn't prohibit, it gives uses. It doesn't specifically say that you can't do this, it says you can do that.
Correct, and as of right now, we are meeting the 25% maximum lot coverage.
I still have a problem with it. And I'm concerned, you know, our town engineer is talking about storage capacity, and I get concerned over where does this take us, right? Does it take us to filling, and I know this is prohibited in reference to ridge heights because it says existing, right? That's what in the zoning bylaw, but I don't know where this takes us, because just because conservation says that you could do this is under the conservation laws, doesn't mean from a zoning standpoint, we have to allow it. And my concern is again, and I've said this many times being on this board, when we went to town meeting, we said we'd be sticklers, and it certainly wasn't that language, in reference to lot coverage. And we got raise and replace passed. And one of the reasons I believe we got it passed was the commitment by the board members that we would not allow the proverbial McMansions, not that this is, but the proverbial McMansions, because everybody was freaked out about that. That was their concern. And we drew a line in the sand and said, you know, when it comes to lot coverage, we're gonna be tough on lot coverage. We're not, and variances and all those other things, right? And so, I don't know, personally, I have a problem with it. Again, I'm one member.
Right.
So.
But, I mean, I think, you know, for this board, looking at this particular project, you know, again, we were at 30-some-odd%. You know, we listened to this board, we listened to their concerns. We could have, you know, kept it at the existing lot coverage and not reduced it under the 25%, but we did. You know, and I think, you know, we did that to, you know, to go back to this board and say, we comply.
But you made a statement that's very important. So so the existing lot coverage is at 25.5 and you went to 24.9.
Correct.
Yeah, so you could have gone up minutely.
Maybe
That was a
minutely,
very big
but-
statement there. I was hoping I was gonna see a big range there in those numbers.
But we did go down, and we got
No,
it
I
under
understand.
we got it under the 25%.
I mean, with your theory, you could have stayed at 25.5 too. I mean, because of your theory.
Right.
You know,
But I think-
I'm just telling you, Chris, I have a problem with it for, I guess, future reference. I think it's important for you to understand that. I'm a person that gives clear indications how I act and how I vote.
Right.
So
No, I understand that. And
I
again,
got a problem with that.
I think, you know, again, you know, two things that I would point out is I don't think that the Conservation Commission is going to willy-nilly let people just fill in lots for the sake of filling lots just so they can get by lot coverage issues. That wasn't the intention here. The intention here was to enhance the coastal resource area by connecting it, and we've done
I'm not
that.
questioning conservation in any way, shape, or form. They have their rights, they have their rules, their regulations that they, I presume, follow. That's their thing, right? Not us. It's not my thing. And I'm not questioning what they did or didn't do.
Right.
I'm only saying that from a zoning standpoint, I think that it kind of, for me, somebody, because your father in the past has come in front of this board and says, well, you did 4, right? Somebody could come along after you and say, well, you did 4, and he filled it to get to that same point, and he used it for lot coverage. We're in court on a lot coverage issue and how we calculated lot coverage.
I think I'm involved in that case.
Yes, you are. And so this right now, the way we handle this, could set a precedent for court proceedings in the future, and frankly, I'm concerned about.
Right.
So I just,
No, I understand. But again, I think, you know.
I don't ever want to be a board member where you question where I come from.
No, and I certainly don't, and I appreciate your opinion on that. You know, as I say, I think that, you know, from this seat, we've met the 25%, and, you know, I think it's, you know, meets the bylaw, and that it can be approved by the board. And, you know, again, I think if you looked at this lot, you know, before any development was on it, we're probably creating what was there existing, you know, prior.
Let me ask you one question. I know we've got a bunch of questions here, but there's a little, I guess you'd call it an intake in the coastal bank. Is that correct?
As currently?
Yes.
Yeah, so what happened was, whenever they built the existing house, there was probably, the coastal bank, you know, I'm assuming this, but the coastal bank was one unit. And if you look at this house, there's a walkout basement, so they dug out a huge basement. So now,
Do you know this is a fact?
I don't know what the lot looked like before any, but I can tell you for sure that there's a significant dig out and walkout basement. So that, I don't think that lot was natural that way beforehand. If you look at the photos, I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, that walkout basement is, I don't know, 10, 15 feet below the existing grade. And that,
It's,
Go ahead.
I think it's a pretty unique situation. I don't remember one coming to us like this where they had a depression like that where the
is the
coastal
first.
bank was cut, and
18
it does
years.
make sense, like Attorney Corain says, that it probably was cut out to build that house, and no one cared back then.
Right.
Unless you can, as one member, unless you can show me where it says in our bylaws that they're not allowed to do that, put it back to the way it was, and conservation thinks it's a better way to make it, I can't see how I can vote against it, because I'm not, I need to be told something more saying that this can't be done,
Right,
as one member.
right.
One sec. Bill, go ahead.
Yeah. If they're withdrawing their request for a variance, and they're only asking for a special permit under 174-17-1,
Correct.
we, as a board, have to determine if that is more detrimental than what previously existed. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not, but I'm only one member. But that's our test here tonight, not whether or not they did something to fill in or to do this. We have to determine, is what they're proposing here tonight more detrimental than what previously existed?
Correct.
I
under
agree with you, Bill, and
174-17-1.
certainly I'd rather remain silent, but town engineer comments clearly stated it's more detrimental.
Jim?
Yeah, might I suggest that there may be a precedent for this, because under the conservation law, you can reconstruct additional wetlands to make, to destroy a wetland. Okay? In other words, if your house is too close to the wetlands, you may be required to make additional wetlands on the same property as someone.
But they're not doing that.
No, I know, but, so that's a precedent for filling is what I'm trying to say. Okay?
But as a board, we've got a and listen, if you guys want to, it's up to you, vote for it, but as a board, we've got a document from a town engineer that says filling floodplain will result in an incremental increase in flood heights.
But that's not what that comment, I don't believe that's what that comment says. Because what that comment, and that's the one that came today, I believe, from the engineer.
I don't know.
Yeah, but we have a comment from Conservation responding to that comment. Sharon, would you read that?
All right, we had read the whole engineering one.
Okay.
Do we want to read the whole, that?
Yeah,
you
why don't
probably
we
need-
read the engineer, and then we'll,
Read
The
the
last-
rebuttal from the conservation.
Okay, yep. It's dated 4/13, it's from Chris Gallagher. Mary Ann, see attached comments for tomorrow's meeting. I will not be able to attend, but 42 Spoondrift's proposed lot coverage is based on increased lot area above C, created by proposed filling of flood zone land, which will increase adjacent flood heights. If proposed lot coverage were based on existing conditions, which it should be, it would be about 31%, which exceeds the existing coverage of 25.5%. Now I have conservations, which is dated today, too. Hi, Mary Ann. In reviewing the order of conditions permit issued for 42 Spoondrift Way for the demo rebuild of a single-family home, the total square footage of alteration of land subject to coastal storm flowage, a 100-year flood plan, on the lot is 3,042 square feet. Regulation 25 under Mashpee's Chapter 172 Wetland Bylaw contains standards for development alteration within land subject to coastal storm flowage. These standards center on either retaining a percentage of natural vegetation on a lot and/or providing enhanced natural vegetation areas on a lot within the flood zone, depending on the square footage of alteration. Retention and/or creation of natural vegetated areas in effect increases flood storage capacity on the lot. A mitigation plan created by Crawford Land Management was submitted and approved by the commission as part of the overall application. This mitigation plan includes planting of 36 native shrubs, 1,000 square feet of native huckleberry, and retention of 8 existing pine and oaks within the portion of the lot delineated as flood zone. The mitigation plan effectively meets the standards of Regulation 25, land subject to coastal storm flowage, under Mashpee's Chapter 172 Wetland Bylaw. Let me know if there are any questions. Sincerely, Drew McManus, Town Conservation Agent.
So, if I'm listening to those two comments, you have the Conservation Commission, which is in charge of your natural resources and your coastal wetland areas, and they reviewed this project thoroughly, is stating that, the applicant has done what is required to protect the resource areas. And then you have town engineer, that's not within his purview, necessarily, nor is it him. I don't think it's within his purview to comment on what the lot coverage percentage should or should not be. That's whether it's David with the building department or whether it's the board itself. It's your interpretation, and with him, and I disagree with him that that's the way it should be determined. But again, you have these conservation commissions clearly telling you that this is not substantially more detrimental. And I think that, I think in this particular case, on these particular issues, I think conservation's comments should carry a lot more weight than town engineers, because, as I say, they're the ones who are charged with interpreting the conservation rules and regulations, and they thoroughly reviewed this project. And then as far as the comment that Mr. Gallagher made with respect to the, I think it's, Article 174-63C, that provision's found in your floodplain regulation, or floodplain regulation bylaw. That, what he's citing there is if we were requiring any variations from the floodplain article, then an incremental increase of the floodplain or the flood, I don't know exactly how it reads, we would need your permission to do that. However, we're not changing anything on it. We're in conformance with the floodplain regulation, so we're not asking the board to vary anything. So again, I think his comment does not apply to this application.
I think the other argument you could make is, and the engineer said it, based on the existing conditions. I feel that, I have no proof, those were not the original existing conditions. I think the lot was altered for the home, so they could have a walkout for the home that was there.
Yeah,
It's just not natural to have a depression like
it's
that.
not that,
In dead center on.
right, where the walkout is. Not that significant a one, for sure.
So, that's just a.
Even if the board were to consider what the town engineer has proposed or has stated, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but even if you were to accept what the town engineer says, which I don't, but we still only have to determine if what they're proposing is more detrimental than what previously existed. And I suggest that, based on conservation's comments, that it clearly is not more detrimental than what previously existed.
Right. Plus, you're also making it building code compliant and floodplain compliant.
Correct.
So,
I have a question. When you went to conservation, did they ask you to fill it in, or did you say, we'd like to fill it in?
I'd have to defer to David Martin on, because I wasn't representing them at the time.
Now, if they asked you to
That's a whole, well, that's another check mark.
David Martin, DH Martin Engineering, for the record. They did not, they did not make a request that we do that. That was something that we brought forward in respect to their regulations. We wanted to do positive things on this property, and restoring the function of the coastal bank is very important, and which is a vertical storm buffer, and restoring the habitat value is very valuable.
Thank you. So, just a technical question. The way it is now, it's been that way for,
I think probably since the 1950s or 60s when the original building
Right.
was built.
so because it's been there for 60, 70 years, whatever, isn't that a coastal bank in itself?
I don't think it meets the definition of a coastal bank.
No, it would not.
Right, because coastal banks have to have certain, the slope, and it has to be so many, David can speak to it, but I don't think, it doesn't meet it.
Well, coastal bank, part of the definition for coastal bank speaks to the seaward face of an elevated landform. And when the building is the vertical face, there's no real guidance under the DEP standards for how you delineate that. So we have a coastal bank on one side and another one on the other side. That flat area where the walkout is below the floodplain, and
So you're actually creating a coastal bank where there wasn't one? Is that what you're telling me?
well, there's not one there presently today. There may
There
have been
were
one.
two, then there's a cutout, and there's no coastal bank there.
Correct.
You're going to connect it to make one coastal bank.
Correct.
One continuous coastal bank.
If I could just say one thing and then I'm gonna shut up. As one member, as one member, I rely very heavily on people that have more knowledge, in my opinion, than I do in specific areas. In this case, I'm relying on the town engineer. Town engineer went to school, 6 years, 8 years, whatever it is, he has a piece of paper that says he knows more than I do as far as engineering is concerned. And he says, and I think, other than this gentleman, anybody in this room in reference to engineering, and I don't know everybody's knowledge, but he's saying to this board, and he represents this town, that there are going to be whatever flood characteristics there are here, we're putting them somewhere else, and it is creating a situation where it is more detrimental than what exists today if we allow this to happen.
Sure,
He is our
that.
professional. He's the guy that reports to this board and gave us the information, and so we're sitting there saying, we don't believe you.
Well,
I see, for me, the applicant has an engineer, has an attorney, but we have our own engineer saying,
well, but you're also saying then you don't believe Drew McManus, who is an employee of this town.
No, I believe Drew, he's not an engineer.
but-
And has no engineer stamp, and has no engineer, I think, abilities. We have an engineer that we hired as a town engineer, which is a great asset for our board, saying to this board, hey, guys, you got a problem here.
Well, I don't think that these are engineering questions that he's speaking to.
Well, I think they are. I think because what's happening is the flood storage that's there today, or the flood storage that you would have had, as a novice, we're reducing that flood storage. He's saying, there's no question, quote, end quote, it is more detrimental. I don't know how, that's like the fireman of this town saying, you're approving something that I can't fight a fire at, or it's gonna burn down, and you should improve for health and safety. We sit there and say, what do you know? I have a problem with that, and then I'm gonna just say that, and I'm gonna shut up, and whichever way the board votes, so be it, and I'll vote the way I want to. I'm not gonna beat a dead horse anymore.
No, I understand what you're saying, but again, I think that, conservation is the one who's charged with your, coastal
But they're not
resources.
charged with flooding.
Yes, they are.
No.
Yes.
Yes,
Our
they are.
town engineer is far more in charge in reference to engineered flooding issues than does conservation. Conservation is control of vegetation and 40A or 41, whatever it is.
131, section
Yeah.
40,
Yeah.
30, or 141, section 30. But,
Anyway, I'll send it now.
If I,
So, I totally agree that the withdrawal from any variance is warranted for the front setback requirements, lot coverage requirements. But the structure is totally built within 50 feet of a coastal bank, which is 174.33. So it is within a coastal bank. A coastal bank is defined by Mass General law. So I think this has been changed so many times that we have, I agree that all these variances need to be, these should be withdrawn.
Right.
Because you've complied, and
Right.
I seen you have.
Right. It's-
But the coastal bank is a coastal
Right.
bank, and we generally bring these to the board for that.
Right. It's,
you know,
and I agree. It's been my understanding, however, that we're not creating a new nonconformity under the 50-foot because we're already in violation of the 50-foot with the existing structure. So it's always been my understanding that you don't need to bring a new variance where you're already nonconforming with that regulation, which we are.
And so I believe it is basically, it's a raise and replace, and like what you said, it's up to the board to decide if it's more detrimental.
Thank you. Rather than beat this to death, does anybody have any final comments?
Well, I agree with Ron, because if they're changing the floodplain, the water's got to go someplace, and it's going to go to their neighbors.
I'll
Anybody else?
All due respect to your town engineer, I've been doing this for more than 35 years, a lot of projects in floodplains, and a lot of work on the coast. There's often confusion about that standard. It's come up in the past, and I believe what he is speaking to is a standard that's pertinent to riverine systems and inland flood zones. And never in my career have I seen that applied to an ocean situation.
I agree with you. It's a river, upland and lowlands, I believe a river flotation, I get that. The house is not in the floodplain, and that's, from my standpoint, it's, the house is not in the flood zone, so it doesn't need relief for that.
And FEMA does allow us to do this. They encourage us actually to mitigate risk, flood damage risk, to alter landforms along the coast so as to remove structures from a hazard zone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience? Okay, have we missed anything? Have we read all the comments in?
Oh, no, we didn't do Board of Health.
Okay.
Board of Health, the proposed raise and replace of the existing dwelling requires the following tasks to be completed: a septic inspection of existing septic system, a disposal works construction permit from the Board of Health to replace the existing septic tank, an asbestos inspection of the existing dwelling by a private licensed asbestos inspector with abatement if necessary, a rodent inspection by the Board of Health agent. The requirements shall be performed and submitted to the Board of Health prior to the issuance of the building permit. The existing septic permit states a 3-bedroom septic is provided. The property is in a Zone 2, so the dwelling is restricted to 3 bedrooms. The floor plans have been reviewed and revised and are acceptable for 3 bedrooms.
Thank you. And if the board were inclined to approve the project, we certainly are in agreement with all those conditions.
Scott just mentioned one thing in reference to a motion, if you were asked for me to make one,
In the
that the
positive.
lot coverage was based on also the first floor
Deck, not
deck, not the
foundation.
foundation.
Correct.
Is the board okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is,
Again, making them the positive.
Yep, yep.
So, yeah, if you would, make the first one, and you're requesting a withdrawal of the variance.
I'll do that second, right?
That's the second.
You withdraw a second, right?
Why don't you do the variance first?
Okay,
Get
so
that out.
I'm going to do the withdrawal first. So. All right, so are you asking for a withdrawal of your variance under 174-31?
yes, Mr. Bombi, I am requesting a withdrawal of the variance requests.
So I would like to make a motion that we approve the applicant's attorney's Chris Corain's request for removal or withdrawal of a variance under 174-31 for 42 Spoondrift Way, owners BEC Mass Properties. This is in reference to front, side setbacks, and lot coverage requirements.
Do we have a second? All right, Jim seconds it. Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's get down to the special permit.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we issue a special permit to BEC Mass Properties under Section 174-17-1 of the zoning bylaws. Said BEC Mass Properties is location at 42 Spoondrift Way. Said special permit is to raise and replace an existing single-story residential structure and replace it with a new two-story residential structure on property located in R3 zoning district, map 111, parcel 127, Mashpee, Mass, with the following conditions. 1, order to determine the applicant meets all conditions of a special permit on Mass General Law 48, Section 9. 2, site plan, 42 Spoondrift Way, Mashpee, Mass, prepared by D.H. Martin Engineering, Inc., scale 1 inch equals 10 feet, date November 17, 2021, drawing name, 20, says name, so 20254, site 1, drawing, sheet 1 of 1, revisions, 11922, shows spot elevations for average grade calculations. 12921, show coastal bank 50-foot and 100-foot offsets. 73021, add proposed contours, labels, and trees to be removed. 71421, revise house footprint. Update lot coverage. 4522, revise, reduce structure, revise, open paren, reduce, close paren, structure dimensions. Number 3, condition on all town comments read in the record, including but not limited to the Board of Health. Number 4, condition that all changes to plans require the applicant to return to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Number 5, the applicant has stated that the lot coverage calculations are based on not the foundation, but the first floor square footage of the proposed home.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jim seconds. So Jim, how do you vote?
I'm sort of torn, but I have to believe our town engineer, so I'll vote no.
Excuse me?
I'll vote no.
Scott?
Yes.
Ron?
No.
Bill?
Yes.
Yes. Unfortunately, with 2 no votes, it does not pass. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't think we're really.
As long as I've been on this board. If it's telling you, you know, but I think the lot was altered. Yeah, but it's not more detrimental. I think it's actually better. That's my opinion. That's your opinion, my opinion. It's why we have this. Welcome to America.
Get the gloves up. I concur with you 100%.
I don't want to set us up as being against the town.
I mean, there's a lot of things.
I have my opinion. It's all good.
They can go someplace else.
Need a pen?
Pass these.
Are there any more of these?
Yeah, we didn't pass any of those.
Okay.
So you do the right thing.
I did.
Make sure you check the reports.
I understood it was going to be an issue.
Plan's coming back.
Man's coming back.
We're coming back.
Unfortunately, the town engineer wasn't here.
Man's coming back.
Clean. Reading this, I just see it as a whole.
I guess it's,
You sure says no, no. Come over.
There you go.
We're presuming
Five.
what he's saying.
There you go.
Uncle Edwards.
Okay, are we ready, folks? Sharon, would you read the, Sharon,
Okay, yep.
would you read the first new hearing?
68 Uncle Edwards Road. Owners Richard J. and Lara J. Devaney request a written finding under 174-17 of the zoning bylaws to allow for a deck alteration to a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling on property located in the Pompanesett Overlay District in an R3 zoning district, map 117, parcel 205, Mashpee, Mass.
Hi.
Yes.
And for the record, your name and...
Good evening. Richard Devaney, 68 Uncle Edwards Drive.
All right, let us know if you would, what you'd like to do.
Sure. We are looking to replace the deck, an old aging deck, and in the process of replacing that deck, adding square footage that extends 8 feet behind the house towards the back of the lot. So the side of the house where you say that you see is the dimensions would be the same as they are today.
So all you're doing is ripping down, putting it in the same exact spot.
Along
Is that correct?
Yeah, along the side of the house between the two dwellings, my house and the neighbor's house would be the
Right.
same dimensions. And then extending back 8 feet behind the house,
it.
additional square footage.
Getting larger to the back, but it's not anymore.
Right.
So it's not going any closer to your
So
neighbors.
that's getting.
It's the same, yeah, it's the same exact
It's already
dimension.
this far off.
Okay, what's the size of the lot?
Sorry.
Oh, existing is 19.1,
Yeah,
proposed
I was
is
just
going to
wondering
be
the size of the
21.
lot.
6,500 square feet.
6,500, so does that fall under the,
Well, it's under 10,000, number one,
So go
and
ahead.
it's also under Pompanesett overlay.
Right.
yeah, so they can
So
go up.
it's 25%.
So it's
Oh, is it?
25%, yeah, yep.
So it's 21.6, so,
You could actually make the deck bigger if you wanted,
right.
Yeah,
just
So-
letting you know.
that's, I think we have a good plan.
Yeah.
So just to understand, so you're not making it, you're just getting a little bit,
No, it's the exact same.
yeah, what's,
Because he has to come here.
why is he here?
I don't know. I was asked to, but my builder suggested.
I had no problem listening to him, but.
They're adding to a non-conforming
Yeah,
structure.
he is, he's right.
It's very simple. It's very simple.
I don't think there's any
Oh, I see,
conservation over
because of the
there.
rear yard setback?
Because of the
No, because of the
170.
100-year
They're
flood.
going on.
Ah,
Uncle Edwards isn't,
I got you.
unless there's swampland back there, I don't think there's any,
Okay.
174.17, you have to come in front of.
right.
yeah. Over formality.
Any questions or comments before we
Yeah.
read some?
This is much easier than the last one.
Sharon, would you read any comments we have on?
Okay, conservation. Lot is partially within the 100-year floodplain, which is jurisdiction. However, the area of the proposed work is not within the 100-year floodplain. Board of Health has no comments.
Town engineer, nothing?
Nothing from the engineer.
No comments. No, there was no comments, right?
No issues.
Says no.
Said no
issue.
issues.
No issues.
Anybody in the board have any comments, questions, concerns? Anybody in the audience? Seeing none, Ron, would you like to make a motion?
I would love to. I'd like to make a motion that we issue a written finding under section 174-17 to Richard J. and Laura L. Devaney of 68 Uncle Edwards Road to allow for a deck alteration to a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling, property located in the Pompanesett Overlay District and R3 zoning district. Map 117, parcel 205, Mashpee, Mass. With following conditions. One, the board has determined that the applicant meets all conditions of the written finding under Mass General Law 48, Section 6. Two, site plan, Richard and Laura Devaney, 68 Uncle Edwards Road, Mashpee, Mass. Scale 1 inch equals 10 feet. Date March 2, 2022. Prepared by Warwick Associates, Inc. Stamped and signed by Gary S. Labrie, Registered Professional Land Surveyor, number 40039, date 3/3/22. 3, condition on all town department comments are on the record. 4, condition that all changes to the plans require the applicant to return to the zoning board of appeals. That any changes, sorry.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Jim seconds. Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
I vote yes. Sorry it took so long.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. All right, these are for you.
All right.
I'll sign this. William?
Yep.
Today's 13th, right? Thank you.
Mr. Bonvy?
Sir?
Any more? Nothing else to sign?
Is that what Marion's on?
My hand's not hurting yet.
Oh,
Just waiting for that to come back.
I've got Chris's presentation here if you need.
All right, Sharon, would you read the next new hearing, please?
18 Overland Road, owners George R. Leach, trustees, request a written finding under 174-17 of the zoning bylaws to allow for construction of an attached garage and addition extension to a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling on property located in an R3 zoning district, map 114, parcel 87, Mashpee, Mass.
Okay. You guys gonna have to do some sharing?
Yeah, I gotta do some sharing.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Attorney Christopher Carrain representing the applicant, seeking a written finding for a change, extension, alteration of a pre-existing non-conforming structure. This is a property located at 18 Overland Road. There are actually two structures on the property, number 16 and 18. We are only seeking to do an addition to 18, which I'm sorry for the size of the plan, but is this one. So this lot is one of the larger lots in this area. It is 32,100 square feet. However, based on what's been the lawsuit, we've also given you the calculation of including the land subject to coastal storm flowage, which render the lot at 18,468 square feet. Irrespective of either calculation that you use, we are under the 20% lot coverage either way. I want to correct one thing, based on the Board of Health comments. I looked at the assessor's field cards. They said that there were 2 bedrooms in each of these buildings. According to the Board of Health, there are 6 to 8 bedrooms in there. However, I know that Cape and Islands Engineering talked to Mr. Harrington this afternoon after his comments. The loft area that's being proposed, I think Glenn is in agreement, is not a bedroom. There's no privacy. But that being said, we're still, we're still amenable to the condition that Glenn does his inspection, and if there's changes that need to be made to the septic system, we'll abide by those. But again, I don't think that the loft area, and I think Glenn would agree that the loft area qualifies as a bedroom. But again, he'll do his inspection, that can be conditioned, and if there needs to be an upgrade to the septic system based on his feedback, then we'll certainly do that. These are pretty modest additions to the structure. We are pre-existing non-conforming because there are 3 roads that surround it, and we are the existing structure is less than 40 feet from Monomoskoye Road West, which is a not constructed paper road, and from Overland Road. We're not getting any closer to Overland Road, which exists today. We are getting a little bit closer to the paper road, Monomoskoye Road West, but only because of the unique shape of the lot. If you see the road kind of digs into that lot, the addition actually isn't extending any further than the existing building. However, it is getting a little bit closer to Overland than what currently exists. But again, it's already non-conforming on Monomoskoye Road West. It's already non-conforming. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions the board may have. Mark from Cape and Islands is with me tonight, too, if there's any questions for him.
What did you say the lot coverage if we didn't use the overall wetland? You said
Correct.
17, because on this plan,
18,000?
it's based on 32.
So, so based on this is based on 32. I did a calculation in my presentation. So if you include the land subject to coastal storm flowage, the existing lot coverage is 13.35%. The proposed would be 17.21%.
And I assume includes the pool.
Correct.
Mark?
Yes, correct.
So is that the actual addition?
2 additions.
So it includes both
This is the
houses and the pool?
Correct. Yeah, and
So Chris, the darker brown is what you're adding on, right?
that is correct.
So are you, just a question, are you getting closer to the wetland resource area than you are existing today?
Not any closer than the pool.
Oh, I see. So because, I get you. Because the pool is whatever distance.
Right.
And the pool is a structure. The building can be then that same distance.
Right, we're not even, I mean, the pool is significantly closer to the link, subject to coastal storm flowage, we're not,
On your left was Hamblin
So this
Pond.
right here.
It's over
So
here.
isn't not the green line the 100-foot setback from wetlands?
Maybe the engineer should answer that.
I think.
Right. There's a 50-foot buffer and there's a 100-foot.
So the blue line, the green line is a 100-foot setback from wetlands, correct?
from the top of the coastal bank, which is on,
Yeah, which is our depiction of wetlands. So
right.
is not the building, your proposed building, I just want to get this right. I'm not against it, believe me. Is not the new building closer to the green line than the existing building? Or any other structure on the lot?
Again, Mark did with Cape and Islands Engineering. You'll see a 104 feet existing house to coastal bank dimension. Do you see that?
Yes,
Yes.
I do.
You see that? And then we also have a 100-foot from coastal bank to the addition. So it is getting 4 feet closer, but we do have conservation approval already.
I know, but
so.
you,
and it's
So I
outside
have
the 50-foot.
no, but what's the green 100-foot buffer?
To the coastal bank,
So that 100-foot buffer is the setback to the wetlands, correct?
correct. To the closest resource area to the,
Right. Well, so I'm trying to understand to make sure, because if the 100, and then you go 50, you're, I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's getting a little too.
yeah,
There's no issue.
all
Well,
the,
there could be. That's all right, I'm fine.
okay.
He's more than 100 feet away.
Yeah.
Right.
101.
The wetland resource area is
Hamblin
Right
Pond
here.
is over here.
It can't be closer than 50. It's okay. It's all right, I'm totally fine.
Isn't this 50?
Hey, Jim,
Right. Right there.
why don't you pass that down to so the guys can take a look.
We should be able to, we should.
Oh, there should have been a measurement there. I got you.
Okay.
It's over.
See Hamblin Pond over to the left?
Yes.
Yep.
And you see the two green lines, one's 50, one's 100. So it's more than 100 feet away
Well,
from the coastal
in
bank.
the future, if
Is
I
that
could just
correct?
recommend that you put a line to the 50, because one of our requirements is that you can't work without a variance within 50 feet, so you're probably 51 feet or something from the wetlands. That,
no, we're 104 feet.
I agree.
I get you, I understand.
Okay.
I'm looking at something else. I don't want to, it's fine, 100%, I don't want to bring it up. I don't want to bring it up. I love the plan.
Oh, boy. Okay.
He's probably
So
talking
you're
about
not-
this
you're-
line. But we're already, the pool's already non-conforming, the structure's already 50 feet.
So you're not looking for any variances or anything?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
We're still 174.17.
All right, any final comments before we have Sharon read a few comments from the different departments? Nobody? All right, Sharon?
Conservation, this project was approved by the Conservation Commission. Town engineer has no problems, no issues. Board of Health, the change in footprint requires a septic inspection to be performed. The lot addition is considered an increase in flow per the Board of Health bedroom definition. The capacity of the septic system that services the dwelling with the addition must be in compliance with Title V. If an upgrade is necessary, the property will be required to have a denitrification due to the 8-bedroom flow on record.
Thank you. So the only caveat I would say to that is that I think there was a conversation between Cape and Islands and Glenn on the increased flow issue. It's my understanding, and Mark can confirm this, that I think Glenn thought that the loft area was an extra bedroom, but I think after discussion, it was determined that it's not a bedroom, so there's no flow increase. But irrespective of that, Glenn will do his inspection, and if we have to do something, we'll do it.
Do you have, so if there were a motion to be made and it was conditioned upon the approval of the Board of Health, would you have a problem with that?
I would not have a problem with that.
There you go.
Okay, any final comments? All right, Ron, if you would, make a motion.
Certainly. I'd like to make a motion that we issue a written finding under section 174-17 to George R. Leach, trustee at 18 Overland Road. Said written finding is in reference to the construction of an attached garage and addition, extension to a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling on a property located in an R3 zoning district, map 114, parcel 87, Mashpee, Mass, with the following conditions. 1, Board has determined the applicant meets all the conditions of a written finding under Mass General Law 48, Section 6. 2, site plan prepared for George R. Leach, 18 Overland Road, Mashpee, Mass, sheet number 1 of 1, date January 31, 2022, scale 1 inch equals 20 feet, drawn by M.D. RLR, checked by MC, prepared by Cape and Isle Engineering, drawing title, site plan, proposed addition, signed by Matthew C. Costin, number 52282, professional land surveyor. 3, condition on all town comments read into the record. Number 4, condition that all changes to plans require the applicant return to the zoning board of appeals. No, condition that any changes. Also, condition on the applicant seeking and obtaining prior to the application of a building permit all necessary Board of Health approvals necessary.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second,
Jim seconds. Jim, how do you vote?
yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the
Very
board. Have a
good.
great evening. It's nice to see everybody in person.
We're setting a record here. Enough for a
Full
basketball
board.
team in. Everything else.
Can I have everybody vote on my first one?
Good.
Thank you again. Have a great night.
Take care, Chris.
I remember my board this time.
Good luck to last time.
Trash?
All right, what do you want me to do? Did you stamp this one? Yes. House plans too, is there?
Here you go, sir.
You need to sign that.
I feel bad. It doesn't get worse. You gotta always look at the bright side. There could have been a hell of a lot worse things. So fighting goes all along.
Saturday, you going somewhere?
Still get up in the morning, right?
Oh,
That's all that
my fault.
Gonna become horizontal permanently?
matters. Different story.
Numbers of,
You fight the war. Replace me with a war.
Okay.
my Saturday.
Let's find you a project.
Sharon, would you read the first other business, please?
I'd like to make a motion. I move that we approve the meeting minutes of March 23rd, 2022.
Okay, second.
Jim seconds, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, Bob, would you like to make a motion to close the meeting?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to end this evening's meeting with the board.
I'll second
Jim seconds, all in favor? Aye. Good night. Well done.
People get loud for that one.
that.